Miguel, and why? Miguel was 6 years old, and he wanted to know everything about everything. He asked questions all the time, to everyone. Mom, why does the sun shine? Because it's a big ball of fire in space, my son. But why doesn't it go out? Because there are lots of gases that keep it burning. And why is space so big? Oh, my dear. Because that's how God, or the universe, made things. But Miguel wasn't satisfied with just any answer. He always wanted to know more. At school, Miguel was the student who raised his hand the most. The teacher smiled because she knew he was going to ask something. Teacher, why are the letters of the alphabet shaped like this? Because they were invented many years ago by ancient people. But why did they choose these shapes? Well, because they thought it was easier to write. And there came Miguel with another question. But who taught them how to write? The whole class laughed. And so did the teacher because she knew Miguel would never stop asking questions. One day after class, Miguel saw some ants carrying little pieces of leaves. Curious, he called his friend Pedro and asked Pedro, why do ants always walk in a line? Pedro shrugged. I don't know, Miguel asked the teacher, but Miguel wanted to find out by himself. He crouched down and observed closely. That's when he noticed something incredible. Look, Pedro, it seems like they are following an invisible path. The next day, Miguel asked his science teacher, who explained very good observation. Miguel, ants leave a scent called pheromone, so the others know where to go. Miguel was fascinated. So they communicate with smells? That's amazing. And he learned something new that day. One afternoon, Miguel went to visit his grandfather, and of course, he kept asking questions. Grandpa, why do stars shine? His grandfather laughed and answered, because they are big balls of fire, just like the sun. But why do some twinkle and others don't? His grandfather thought for a moment and said, because their light travels a very long way to reach us. And on the way, the air makes the light flicker. Miguel's eyes lit up. That's incredible. His grandfather looked at him and said, you know, Miguel, questions are like little keys. The more questions you ask, the more doors of knowledge you open. The boy's eyes sparkled. So, if I keep asking, I can learn everything. His grandfather laughed and ruffled his hair. Not everything, but you can learn a lot. And the more you learn, the more questions you'll have. One day, Miguel's parents took him to the museum. As soon as they arrived, he ran to the dinosaur exhibit. Wow, Mom, why were these dinosaurs so big? Because millions of years ago, there were many giant plants, and they needed to be big to survive. And why did they disappear? Because a huge asteroid hit the Earth. But why did it fall? His mother laughed. I think even scientists don't know the exact answer to that. Miguel thought for a moment and said, so that means there are questions nobody knows the answer to. His father replied, yes. And that's why science exists, to discover new answers. Miguel loved that idea, that I want to be a scientist. His parents smiled. You already are a scientist, Miguel. Because scientists never stop asking questions. That night, Miguel lay in bed and thought about everything he had learned that day. He realized that asking questions wasn't just a way to discover things. It was a way to never stop learning. And before falling asleep, he asked his last question of the day, Mom, Why do I feel sleepy at night? His mother smiled and answered, because your brain worked a lot today, and now it needs to rest. So tomorrow, it can ask even more questions. Miguel closed his eyes and smiled. That's great. Tomorrow, I'll discover even more. Now, little one, close your eyes and imagine all the amazing questions you can ask tomorrow. Good night and sweet dreams.